Mason, Caleb, Paris. The school bus was already at the door. It was another late morning at our house, and my kids were leaving without breakfast. I gave Mason and Caleb a smile as they rushed through me to the bus. Mason and Caleb were my twin sons. They were both in their final year of school. Where is your sister? Being dramatic as usual. He got into the bus and I saw him talk to the bus driver, and the bus left before I could ask the driver to wait. The driver had already waited long enough, and even he knew that Paris would take too long. I sighed and picked up the car keys, calling out to Paris while I prepared to take her to school myself. Finally, she appeared at the top of the staircase. Her hair was in a mess, and she was still wearing her nightclothes, and she had a blanket on her shoulders. Paris, don't you have school? Why aren't you dressed yet? My blanket, Mama, it's not soft enough. I couldn't sleep, and my school bag. I'm not going to school with that dirty brown bag again. What? Your blanket is fine, and seriously? The bag? You just bought it last week. Well, it looked different in the store lighting. I want the pastel green bag that Annie has. Paris, not only do you want to buy stuff you like, but also all the things others have? That's enough of your tantrum. Grow up a bit, get ready, and I'll drop you. She groaned. It's already late now. I'm going back to bed, she said as she went to her room, completely ignoring me. I went up the stairs and knocked on her door. I heard a few groans as I kept knocking, but she didn't open her door at all. I went back to the kitchen to find her room key in the drawer. I had to throw all of the stuff around to find the key. I knew exactly what my daughter was about to do, and I was planning to stop her. I went up to her room and unlocked it, but she was nowhere to be found. She had thrown her nightclothes on the floor and went down to her balcony. I rushed towards it and saw her hooting with her friends in a car as they disappeared on the turn, waving at me. I and my husband Bart had 3 kids, Mason, Caleb, and Paris. Paris was the youngest and the most spoiled. At a younger age, her antiques just seemed funny, but now that she was 14, she had become impossible to control. She would leave the house without asking us and come back late at night, and some nights we didn't even know where she was until the next day. She always demanded extravagant gifts, and eventually we had to give in to her. But Mason and Caleb would have to sacrifice their demands in order for us to be able to afford everything. Paris never even thought of her brothers when she wanted something. She had become a prime reason for stress for me and my husband. We didn't know how to combat it. Mason and Caleb came back home as usual. Have you seen your sister? They raised their eyebrows and said, No. Is she gone again? I sighed and went to prepare lunch. It was late at night when my husband and I were sitting at our dinner table, talking about Paris, when we heard our bell ring. We were both ready to talk to her, but a young man stood before us with a clearly drunk Paris as she leaned on him. My husband helped Paris into the house and shut the door. Paris was drunk at 14. After my husband had dropped her to her room, we both sat around thinking that it was high time we did something. We decided that we needed to send Paris to a boarding school across town. It would cost us a lot of money, but we were both ready to spend our savings on getting help for our daughter. Perhaps a life away from the lively city of New York and her family would teach her the value she didn't possess. The next morning, as we all had breakfast, Paris behaved rather nonchalantly, as she didn't know what had happened last night. When we all finished our breakfast, my husband cleared his throat, and everyone looked at him, except Paris, who was typing away on her phone. We have decided to send Paris to a boarding school in Hillsborough. I know this is going to be a big change for the family, but I'm expecting all of you to adjust. He stared at Paris as she was still typing on the phone. Paris! She looked up in annoyance. You're moving in a week. Get packed. So you all think you can just send me anywhere? Her lips twisted in a sly smile. I and Bart just raised our eyebrows. Yes. Now eat and go to bed. I'm not listening to you giving me lectures. I'm an adult now. I'm going to go out because, seriously, you guys just keep pestering me. She began to get up from the dinner table with her plate half eaten. You can't leave Paris. The door is locked. Also, you are shifting to the boys' room as you don't deserve a balcony from which you can jump out. What? I'm not doing that. No way. Oh, we've already moved your stuff, and you see us giving you options, young lady. How can you even do that? Do you guys have the right to do that? That's enough, Paris. To your room, now. Oh, there's no way. She threw her plate at the glass window of our living room. She began throwing all of her things around. The vase, the books, the cups. Soon enough, even our phones were in the air. Bart and the boys rushed to her and held her down. I'm going to call the cops on both of you. You've made my life miserable. Paris had always been a rebel, but the level of violence she showed us today was scary. I began doubting my parenting. What had I done so wrong that she had turned out this way? What was parenting missing? Did we give her too much leeway, as she was the youngest? The questions were innumerable, but the answers not so many. Somehow, we managed to send her off to the bedroom while my husband and I had another sleepless night. We sat around in the living room until morning, and in the morning, Bart decided that we must send Paris away at once. Bart went out to make arrangements while I made breakfast. Caleb and Mason came downstairs and had their breakfast in silence. Our house was eerily quiet. After last night, I heard the doorbell and went to the open door. I passed the living room that was still a mess. When I opened, I saw two well-dressed men. Hi, ma'am. I'm Mr. Finch. We would like to see Miss Paris. One of the men said to me, Paris? Who are you? We've come from CPS. We are investigating Miss Linda and Mr. Bart on account of child abuse and neglect against their biological daughter, Paris. I'm assuming you must be Miss Linda? Child abuse? What? I don't understand. Yes, Miss Paris called us last night. If you may, I'd like to take her with us until we finish our investigation. Yes, of course. I heard a soft whisper behind me as Paris walked in, all dressed up, with a bag in her hand. Paris, what were you thinking? Are you out of your mind? Do you even realize what you've done? Miss Linda, please, let's not get hasty. Paris, come on, we're off. Mr. Finch, can I see your ID? Any official documents? Yeah, no, we can't show you anything. Paris, hurry up. I held Paris's hand and pulled her inside and shut the door on their faces. Fortunately, I had quickly realized that it could be one of Paris's older friends trying to trick us. Obviously, she was in it. I knew my daughter was a rebel, but she was definitely not stupid enough to actually call CPS. She wouldn't be able to spend one day at their facility. I called the police immediately and informed them about what had happened. For the first time in 14 years, I was driven to a point where I planted a slap on Paris's face, streaking her cheeks with my fingers. She stared at me in horror as her eyes began to turn red. She was quiet. She had never expected it, but she definitely had deserved it. We always believed in raising our kids using our voice, but this time I'd gone ahead with using my hands when my voice wasn't enough. My husband came back, and I told him about the incident. He was livid in anger, but I told him that she's leaving anyway, so may as well hold the anger inside. The police had found the boys and arrested them, pressing charges for pretending to be from the CPS to take an underage child from her house. We drove Paris to her boarding school as she stared out the window the whole day, not saying a word. We came back home feeling a bit nervous. We didn't know if this would work at all. It has been 4 years to that day. Paris came back home every vacation, and her life at the boarding school had made her grateful for everything she had at home. It looked like she had truly transformed and learned to appreciate small things. Today is her graduation, and we couldn't be prouder as we stood in the crowd while she was on stage. The secret recipe to good parenting is simply to never give up. We as parents also learn as the child grows, and sometimes we may have to take harsh steps, but as long as they make us better in the long run, it's all for the best.